Hello, my name is Haley Clemmer, and today I will be doing my presentation over Chapter 7, Memory Errors, specifically the section on the 7 sins of memory. So the first is, I will start with vocabulary. So I just did all 7 sins. So the first one is transience, which is a normal forgetting of information over a period of time or just over time in general. So, like when we forget what we had for dinner 2 weeks ago. The next one is absent-mindedness, which is having a lack of attention during encoding or retrieval. So, forgetting where you placed your keys or your wallet, or doing your homework ahead of time and you forget to turn it in. Next one is blocking. This is being unable to retrieve information when you, especially when you know it. So this information can be like not knowing an actor's name, even though you know who they are, but you just don't know their name. And then source misattribution is uh, remembering something from one source than where it came from. So this can happen with like a test you have coming up and you forgot. You thought your psychology professor told you you have a test next week, but it was actually your biology professor. So you over prepare for psychology when you should have been preparing for biology. Next to the vocabulary, we have suggestibility, which is, like it says, suggestions and statements made by other people that alter our memories. This can happen with police lineups, them making us think it was this person by using, coerciveness of questions of you know, they look like this, right? Using right and correct with the question marks can really push us to say yes, when in reality it wasn't. So they try to get the answers out of us. These can also be false memories, us creating false memories. So experiencing an event that didn't actually happen to us, you were just told about. And the last one is persistence, which is an unwanted memory being experienced over and over again. This can be a song, this could be a memory, this could be anything that we don't want to experience. Sorry. Sorry if you're not able to see this. Okay, so the first 2 sins I'm going to go over are transience and absent-mindedness. Which transience is the normal forgetting over time, like I said before. So not remembering what you had for dinner 2 weeks ago. So interesting fact, over time, less information is forgotten than when it was first encoded. So newer information we're more likely to forget than older information. And then more interference and less consolidation, forgetting occurs more. And to not have this, sleeping will actually help. This is most likely due to a lack of interference while sleeping. Okay, and then absent-mindedness is having a lack of attention during retrieval or encoding. So not remembering where you placed your keys or completing homework early, but forgetting to turn it in. Another can be remembering the intentions of a task you were going to perform, like walking into a room and forgetting what you're doing in there. Then you go back to the room you were in, and you remember. Then you keep forgetting. And then failure of perspective memory. So this is forgetting. This is remembering to complete future tasks, so like forgetting to take medicine or forgetting to walk the dog. Something you do every day. It's an everyday task, but you forget. So it happens with all of us. Next two are blocking and source misattribution. So blocking, it can be referred to as the tip of the tongue experience. So commonly it happens with when you see an actor on TV or in a movie, but you're having trouble thinking of their name. So you're only able to think of what they've been in. So you gotta start listening then, and people are just like, I don't know who you're talking about either. This can also happen during an exam. This is when you're trying to find that answer that you know and that you studied, but is being blocked. And this can also happen with lists, so like a list of characters, states, or countries. You're more likely going to forget at least one of them. And then source misattribution. Remembering something from one source, but it coming from another source. So when you're told something, but realizing later it was someone else. So like I said, this can happen like with the professor telling you you have a test in this class, but you remember as another class, so you cite for that other class, but in reality it's that one class. So, dang it. Another can be saying that you told someone something, but they think they saw it on Facebook. This happens all the time with my parents. My dad once says he saw it on Facebook. My mom's like, no, I told you that. And this also can happen when somebody's committed a crime, but they show you a picture and you go based on the picture more than what you remember. Okay. And then the next two are suggestibility and bias. So suggestibility, when someone should suggest something to you or makes a statement and it alters your memory. Most commonly seen in police lineups, this is where the police make you believe is the person who committed the crime. May not be, but they're altering your memory to fit their narrative. They're coercing you into that belief. Doesn't just happen with, altering memories. It can create false ones. So experiencing an event, so, you didn't experience an event. Like, I didn't experience 9/11, but I could create a false memory of it because of how much people have told me about it, or all the videos I've seen, or all the information I've been told about it. So next is bias, which happens when our current experiences or knowledge alters our memories of a past experience. This can be positive or negative, interestingly. So the positive is you don't remember how much pain you were actually in during childbirth because of the love you have for the child. You remember it as a happy memory because you gave birth to your child, not as a negative one. So the pain you were in it. And think of it as a negative memory. It's not going to be a good relationship with your child. And then an example negative would be with like a past relationship. So a happy memory turning into a negative one because of your current knowledge of that person or the past experience you have or the ugly breakup. Okay. Then the last one is persistence, which is an unwanted memory happening over and over in our minds. This can be a song getting stuck in our head. This can be an embarrassing moment from our childhood that we don't want to remember. Or this could be something more like PTSD, which are unwanted memories. This mostly happens with soldiers in combat or victims of violent crimes, which can create serious anxiety. Okay, so my example of current research. So this is starting off with what the authors did, but the name of the article was Absent-Mindedness, Lapses of Conscious Awareness and Everyday Cognitive Failures by Shine, Career, or something like that. And then Smilek, or Smilk or something like that. I don't know the names, but we'll just go with those. So in the study, they performed three scales. So the first one was an attention-related cognitive errors scale. The next, a mindful attention awareness scale, and then the last one was a boredom proneness scale. So with the attention-related cognitive errors one, they found the items on a broad bent CFQ started with 20, took 4 off due to lack of correlation. They took 4 more off because they had to do with lack of attention during driving. This got it down to 12 items, where they used the Likert scale of 5 possible responses, 1 being never and 5 being very often. So then it was the 15-item mindful attention awareness scale. So this asks about mindlessness in everyday situation. This is scored on the Likert scale on the scale of 1 to 6. And actually, the lower your number is, the more mindfulness you have. You have less like mindlessness, and this higher your score is actually no, it's reversed. It's reversed. So your lower score, that means. And then they can use the Likert scale on the 28-item boredom proneness scale, 1 being strongly disagree and 7 being strongly agree, 4 being the neutral midpoint. So an example, so this is what they found, how this helps the field of psychology. So the ARCES and the MAAS were found to have a good range of scores, significant but minor deviations from normality and skewness and kurtosis, and the internal consistency was very satisfactory. With the BPS, good range of scores, good internal consistency, and had some skewness and kurtosis. So the ARCES and the MAAS were highly correlated, which is what the authors initially thought, and both were associated with a BPS, but MAAS having a higher association. How does this help the field of psychology? It helps the field of psychology by allowing us to understand how each of these tests can relate to each other in our memory, and how absent-mindedness works, and it could possibly even figure out what one of the main causes of absent-mindedness is. Next is my pop culture example. So this was kind of difficult because I couldn't pinpoint certain ones, like moments in movies or books or TV shows. The easiest one that I actually have better examples for are blocking. So I came up with general examples like how on law shows, like Law and Order, they use suggestibility to get answers. If the criminals are victims or in the court, it's actually illegal, so don't do that. And then bias can happen in like rom-coms, because I thought I loved him, but I didn't, even though we had all these happy memories. You only see them in a negative light. And then absent-mindedness can occur in like a teen movie in high school where a student forgets they had homework due, or with source misattribution, saying, I thought this was due on Friday, but it wasn't. Okay. Hey, my ones for blocking come from the TV shows Victorious and Friends. So my one from Victorious is in the episode called Rockstar, where Kat is trying to think of the sauce that she had at a Chinese restaurant. She describes it as sweet but also sour. Andre suggests sweet and sour sauce, but Kat denies it. But then a few scenes later, Kat finally comes to the realization of it. it was sweet and sour sauce. So she experienced blocking because she knew how to describe it, but she couldn't come up with the name. And then Friends, it was the episode of the one where Chandler doesn't like dogs, where he has his game that he learned at work, where he has to name all 50 states in 6 minutes. And he just happens to mention that you always forget at least one, which is a prime example of blocking. So everyone experiences blocking. Monica can only remember 36 states, Rachel named 48, Phoebe named different types of celery, and then Joey somehow names 56. Ross goes up the challenge and has time to spare at the end of it, but only lists 46. By the end of the episode, he comes back in the middle of the night to show Chandler, but he ends up only naming 49 because he listened to Nevada twice, but he doesn't even care at that point. So, my example set. So, my question is, what is the most common of the 7 sins of memory? I will test all of the seven sins of memory through a very short but simple test. Give them questions, and based on the answer, I can likely figure out amongst this group in all the groups that I will perform this test on, which is the most common sin. I will gather a group of around 30 people per study, and they will have a short test with questions pertaining to each sin, and they will have a time limit for each. So they all finish at the same time. Wait, my example study. This is another. So for Trans Science, I will be asking a question about what they had for dinner 2 weeks ago. Absent-mindedness will actually be a little reminder telling them to turn in the test at the end of the study or tomorrow so I can get my results. And then blocking will be the timed 50 states test. They'll have 10 minutes instead of 6 minutes. And then source misattribution. So at the beginning of the study, I will tell them that they have a psychology test the next day. But then later on in the study, they'll get a question asking, what class did you have a test for? And see who remembers, who doesn't. Suggestibility. So I will give them this lovely picture at the beginning of the study, and then I will kind of coerce them into their answers of on the test. The person had black hair, right, and green eyes, and was female. But clearly he's not. And then bias will be actually about a restaurant, and this will be when they've been to only once and they had a negative experience. I'll ask if they would go back, and they would explain why. Yes would more likely mean there's probably no bias, and if they say no, then they likely do have a bias. I'm sorry for my bad grammar, I'm now realizing. Persistence, I will play a song being a class of the class or the study. The song will be Don't Stop Believin' by Journey. And at the end of the study, I'll ask if the song is still in their head to see if they experience persistence. And this test will all be on like a paper or on like a Google form or something like that. So, like I said, all the questions will be timed, and then I will look at the test together, my data, perform the study as many times as needed to make sure I draw the best conclusion possible. Then my conclusion would be to see which of the sins is most common. And these are my questions. Give you some time to look at them. So you see, I give time for each of them, except the last one. That one I'd probably give like 5 minutes. Okay. So the questions you provided for us. So why did I pick this topic? Personally, I chose this topic because it really was the most interesting chapter to me in the book, and especially this section. I didn't know all these names for these different types of errors, so this topic is very relatable because we all experience it, and I experience it on a daily basis. My favorite thing was my presentation, and the 7 sins of memory, because again, extremely interesting to learn about the names of these everyday occurrences, and again, being able to relate to this topic because it happens to me every day. My questions continue. A skill that I learned was the cognitive word map. This will help me study in future classes, especially ones with vocabulary, because it'll allow me to learn my vocabulary and break it down. But then in the real world, it will uh, allow me to break things down into categories to eventually reach an answer. So I did really enjoy many of the activities that we did. A lot of them were fun, also really helpful towards my learning, and I really did enjoy quite a few of the activities. The only thing is the way Canvas was set up. I'm just used to my classes using the modules, which I understand that's not how you do it, and that's just how it keeps me organized. And I think it's perfectly fine that you do it a different way. Gives this a new perspective, but it just took me a little bit more time to get organized. But I eventually figured it out. The one thing I would add to this course would actually be more activities because I think they really do help with my knowledge of the course and help with my learning. I was able to learn more and more about psychology and the human cognitive processes through the activity. So I think adding more might actually be really helpful in the future. And then lastly, here's my references. And thank you for watching my presentation.